The warning shot. The galactic hegemony had ruled the stars for over 12,000 years. Their vast empire spanned 37,000 inhabited worlds across 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. To them, Earth was nothing more than an insignificant entry in their vast cataloging system, planet T3846c, a small blue dot circling an unremarkable yellow star on the outer edge of the Orion Spur. Not worth direct attention. Not yet. Earth had been under distant observation since humans first split the atom. The hegemony's policy was clear. Monitor primitive species until they achieved reliable interplanetary travel. Then initiate the standard integration protocol. Integration meant subjugation dressed as diplomacy. It meant resources extracted, cultures homogenized, and autonomy stripped away beneath the veneer of galactic citizenship. For centuries, the hegemony's scouts had watched Earth from afar, reporting on our wars, our politics, our slow creep into space. Their reports were clinical, dismissive. Species demonstrates exceptional aggression and tribalism. Technological, progress hampered by sociopolitical fragmentation. Estimate 150 and 200 standard cycles before integration candidacy. They were wrong. What the hegemony failed to understand about humans was our capacity for quantum leaps when backed into corners. They missed the significance of the Chang-Muller Accords of 2086, when the world's superpowers secretly united against a threat they couldn't yet name, but intuitively sensed. While publicly squabbling over climate targets and trade agreements, Earth's nations were quietly pooling resources into what became known as the Aegis Initiative. The first hint that the hegemony had miscalculated came on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday in May 2119. The hegemony scout vessel Obtrusive Inquiry dropped out of fold space just beyond Mars's orbit, prepared to conduct its standard centennial survey of human progress. Instead of finding the expected primitive monitoring satellites and rudimentary Mars outposts, the scout encountered something impossible: a network of quantum-entangled defense platforms that shouldn't exist according to humanity's projected technological timeline. Captain Velian Thresh of the Obtrusive Inquiry barely had time to register surprise before a message broadcast directly into the ship's central command systems, bypassing all encryption protocols. The message was simple, delivered in perfect standard hegemonic. Attention unidentified vessel. You have entered sovereign Terran space without authorization. Reverse course immediately. This is your only warning. Aboard the hegemonic vessel, Captain Thresh's 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. His navigator, a multi-limbed Katal, chittered nervously. Impossible, Thresh murmured. They shouldn't have detected us, let alone penetrated our communications shield. There must be an error. There was no error. When the Obtrusive Inquiry failed to retreat, the nearest Earth defense platform activated. Not with weapons. That would come later, but with something far more disturbing to the hegemony observers. A directed quantum field enveloped the scout ship, temporarily severing its connection to fold space. The ship was stranded, unable to retreat into the safety of higher dimensions. How? Hissed Captain Thresh, as he stared at readouts showing technology that shouldn't exist on a world the hegemony had classified as pre-integration. They're centuries away from this level of understanding. The answer, had he known it, was desperation mixed with ingenuity. Earth's brightest minds had been working in unified secrecy since the first confirmed detection of alien observation posts in 2079. The quantum entanglement defense grid was just one outcome of a civilization that sensed it was being watched and refused to be caught unprepared. A second message followed, this one projected as a hologram directly onto the Obtrusive Inquiry's command deck. The figure that appeared was human, a stern-faced woman with silver-streaked black hair pulled back severely from a face lined with both authority and exhaustion. I am Admiral Helena Reyes of the United Earth Defense Council. Your presence here violates the Sol System Quarantine Protocol, which we established 5 years ago and broadcast on all known communication frequencies, including those your kind believe we cannot detect. Captain Thresh's mandibles clicked in shock. This was unprecedented. Pre-integration species weren't supposed to know about the wider galactic community. let alone establish quarantine zones or detect hegemonic stealth technology. Admiral Reyes continued, her voice level but laced with steel. We have observed your observation of us for 40 years now. We understand what integration means to your hegemony. Earth declines. Sol system declines. We are not your resource cache, your colony, or your subjects. Return to your masters with this message. Earth is closed, permanently. Back on Earth, in the hardened bunker beneath what had once been Geneva, Admiral Reyes terminated the transmission and turned to the assembled representatives of Earth's United Defense Council. It's done, she said simply. The quarantine violation protocol worked exactly as designed. Their ship is temporarily isolated from fold space. They can retreat using conventional drives, but they can't simply disappear. General Okafor of the African Union nodded grimly. How long before they report back? Before we face the consequences? Dr. Eleanor Chen, head of the Quantum Defense Division, consulted her tablet. At their maximum sublight speed, they'll reach the nearest fold point in approximately 3 days. Add another week for their bureaucracy to process the report and decide on a response. We have perhaps 10 days before the hegemony realizes its miscalculation. Then we have 10 days to prepare for their return, said Chairman Viktor Petrov, his weathered face grim beneath bushy white eyebrows. They won't simply accept our refusal. He was right. Within the vast bureaucracy of the galactic hegemony, Earth's unprecedented actions set off alarms that hadn't sounded in 3,000 years. A pre-integration species with quantum entanglement technology, a species that had detected and decoded hegemonic communications, a species that dared to declare its own quarantine zone. The hegemony's response was swift by their standards. 3 standard weeks after the obtrusive inquiry limped back to hegemony space, a diplomatic fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. 15 vessels in total, a show of force disguised as a diplomatic envoy. At their center was the inevitable Discourse, a massive vessel designed specifically for first contact scenarios. In truth, it was a mobile fortress, equipped with enough firepower to reduce Earth's major cities to ash if negotiations failed. High Emissary Dravlektonin stood on the command deck, his elongated fingers steepled before him as he stared at the blue-green world that dared to challenge hegemony protocols. Unlike most of his peers, Laktonin had studied humanity with genuine interest. He found their art intriguing, their music dissonant but compelling, their literature filled with improbable heroism, and even more improbable victories against overwhelming odds. A pity, he murmured to his adjutant. They show promise. If only they'd followed the natural order. The hegemony's diplomatic fleet advanced toward Earth, broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention inhabitants of planet T3846C. This is High Emissary Laktonin of the Galactic Hegemony. Your recent actions constitute a violation of Sector E. Protocol 7-2-9. We come to facilitate understanding and peaceful integration. Power down your defensive systems and prepare to receive representatives. The response was immediate and caught the hegemony completely off guard. All across Earth, in every major city, massive holographic projectors activated simultaneously. The faces of the hegemony commanders, beings who believed themselves unseen, observers, appeared in the skies above Tokyo, New York, Lagos, Sydney, and 100 other population centers. Alongside them appeared detailed schematics of their vessels, their weapon systems, their vulnerabilities. The message was clear. We see you. We know you. We are prepared. In orbit, Earth's defense grid hummed to life. Not the primitive missile, systems or laser platforms the hegemony expected, but a network of quantum state manipulators. Technology the hegemony had only theorized about but never successfully deployed. Admiral Reyes's voice transmitted directly to the inevitable discourse. High Emissary Laktonin, your reputation precedes you. We have studied the 47 worlds you've personally overseen the integration of. We know the average resource extraction increases by 340% after your diplomatic visits. We know about the cultural homogenization programs and the dissident relocation initiatives. On the command deck of the inevitable discourse, Lactonin felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: genuine surprise. Furthermore, Reyes continued, we've taken the liberty of ensuring that all data regarding your fleet's capabilities has been transmitted via quantum entanglement to every inhabited world within 50 light-years of our system. Should anything happen to Earth, the entire sector will know exactly how to target the weaknesses in hegemony vessels. It was a bluff. Humanity hadn't yet established communication with other worlds, but it was delivered with such conviction that Lactonin found himself hesitating. You have 1 hour to withdraw beyond the orbit of Pluto, Reyes concluded. After that, we will demonstrate why the hegemony should fear humanity, not the other way around. For 58 tense minutes, the hegemony fleet remained motionless, at the edge of Earth's defensive perimeter. Inside the inevitable discourse, heated debates raged. Some commanders demanded immediate punitive action, the standard response to defiance. Others, including Lactonin himself, urged caution. Something was wrong. Something didn't fit the established patterns. With just 2 minutes remaining in the ultimatum, the hegemony fleet began to withdraw. As they retreated, Lactonin sent one final message. This is not over, Earth. The hegemony has existed for 12,000 years because it does not tolerate exceptions. Prepare yourselves. Admiral Reyes watched the fleet retreat on the massive holographic display at the center of Earth's Defense Command. Around her, the representatives of humanity's United Nations exhaled collectively. They'll be back, said General Okafor, voicing what everyone knew. Yes, Reyes nodded. But next time, we won't be bluffing. In the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, Earth's real secret was taking shape. A vast shipyard hidden within the hollowed-out remnants of the asteroid series. Here, humanity was building its first deep space fleet, vessels incorporating both recovered alien technology and human innovations the hegemony couldn't predict. The first vessel, nearly complete, bore the name Defiance. The unexpected resistance within, the Galactic hegemony's sprawling capital complex on Axion Prime, an emergency session of the High Council convened for the first time in 7 centuries. The chamber, a vast octagonal space of gleaming alloys and ancient stone, echoed with the agitated voices of 17 different species, all united under the hegemony's rule, all disturbed by the report from Earth. High Emissary Lactonin stood at the center of the chamber, his usual diplomatic composure frayed after 3 consecutive days of questioning. I repeat, counselors, this situation is unprecedented, he said, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Planet T3846C, Earth, has somehow developed technologies that should be centuries beyond their capability. More troubling still, they appear to have been monitoring our observation posts for decades. Supreme Counselor Thetvar, whose crystalline body structure refracted light into dazzling patterns across the chamber floor, leaned forward. What you describe is impossible, emissary. No pre-integration species has ever detected our observation methods. Nevertheless, Lactonin insisted, the humans have, and they have responded not with fear or awe, but with a unified defiance I have never encountered. Across the chamber, Defense Coordinator Mazreth snorted, a sound that caused the membranes on his facial ridges to vibrate unpleasantly. This is absurd. One primitive world versus the hegemony? I recommend immediate subjugation protocols. A single battle group could reduce their major population centers to ash within a standard day. Lactonin shook his head. I cannot recommend that course of action, Coordinator. There are anomalies in this situation that suggest standard approaches may yield unexpected results. The debate raged for another 12 hours before the Supreme Council reached its decision. Earth would not be permitted to defy the natural order. A battle fleet would be dispatched. 30 vessels, including 2 planet crackers. The message would be clear: integrate or perish. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity prepared. The initial confrontation had bought precious time, but everyone from Admiral Reyes to the youngest engineer working in the series shipyards knew it was only a reprieve. The hegemony had existed for millennia by crushing any resistance to its authority. Earth had just become the most visible resistance in thousands of years. What followed was the most intensive period of technological development and global cooperation in human history. Resources that had once been squandered on internal conflicts were channeled into defense systems. Scientists who had once competed now collaborated across borders and disciplines. Within 3 months, the quantum defense grid had been strengthened and expanded to the outer edges of the solar system. The first 5 vessels of Earth's defensive fleet, led by the Defiance, had completed their trials in the shadow of Saturn. But the hegemony had been building its war machine for 12,000 years. When they returned, they brought overwhelming force. The hegemony battle fleet emerged from fold space at the edge of the solar system exactly 6 months after the diplomatic confrontation. Without preamble, without ultimatum, they advanced toward Earth, weapons systems activating. Fleet Commander Drax Vor, a veteran of 12 suppression campaigns, expected the battle to be brief and decisive. His orders were simple: break through Earth's defenses, target major population centers, and force an unconditional surrender. What he didn't expect was the welcoming committee. As the hegemony fleet approached Mars orbit, they encountered not a defensive line, but a scattered field of seemingly innocuous satellites, each no larger than a human automobile. Primitive defense systems, Vor dismissed. Target and eliminate. Before his gunners could comply, the satellites activated, not with weapons, but with something far more insidious. Each satellite contained a miniaturized version of the quantum field technology that had disabled the obtrusive inquiry months earlier. Across the hegemony fleet, alarms sounded as ship after ship lost connection to fold space. Worse, their conventional drive systems began to falter as localized fields of altered quantum states disrupted the exotic matter that powered hegemony vessels. Commander Vor watched in mounting horror as his mighty battle fleet, the pride of the hegemony, began to drift helplessly between Mars and Earth. "Impossible," he hissed. "Their technology cannot be this advanced." But it was, and what came next demonstrated just how thoroughly the hegemony had underestimated human ingenuity. From concealed positions throughout the asteroid belt, Earth's small but lethal fleet emerged. The Defiance led the charge, flanked by its sister ships Audacity, Intrepid, Resolute, and Dauntless. Together, they engaged the paralyzed hegemony vessels, not with conventional weapons, but with targeted quantum disruptions that systematically disabled weapon systems, life support, and internal gravity. Admiral Reyes's voice broadcast across all hegemony frequencies. "Attention hegemony forces. Your vessels have been neutralized. Your weapons are offline. Your communication with the wider hegemony has been severed. You are now at Earth's mercy, a concept your empire seems unfamiliar with." Aboard his flagship, Commander Vor could only watch as human boarding parties, protected by personal quantum fields that rendered hegemony hand weapons useless, systematically took control of vessel after vessel. Within 6 hours, the entire hegemony battle fleet had been captured without a single planet-side weapon being fired. The impossible had happened. David had not only faced Goliath but had rendered him helpless with technology the giant didn't even understand. In the aftermath, as hegemony commanders sat in Earth detention facilities and their crews were processed for eventual repatriation, Admiral Reyes met with Commander Vor. The meeting took place not in a prison cell or an interrogation chamber, but in a simple conference room with windows overlooking the Pacific Ocean. "Why?" Vor demanded, his proud military bearing diminished but not broken. "Why not simply destroy us when you had the chance? It would have sent a clearer message." Reyes smiled faintly. "That's the difference between us, Commander. The hegemony believes power flows from fear. Earth knows it flows from choice. We chose mercy. Not because we couldn't destroy your fleet, but because we wanted to demonstrate that there's another way to exist among the stars." "The hegemony will not forget this humiliation," Vor warned. "They will return with a force that makes mine look insignificant." "Perhaps," Reyes acknowledged. "Or perhaps they'll receive the message we're sending back with you and your officers." That message was delivered 3 weeks later, when the senior officers of the hegemony fleet, aboard a single vessel restored to minimal functionality, returned to hegemony space. With them went comprehensive technical data on Earth's defensive capabilities, detailed scans of the quantum satellites that had disabled their fleet, and a simple diplomatic communication. The Sol system hereby declares itself an independent entity, neither subject to nor hostile toward the galactic hegemony. We seek peaceful coexistence based on mutual respect. We will defend our sovereignty with all necessary force, but we extend an open hand to those who would be friends rather than masters. The response from the hegemony was not what anyone, human or alien, expected. Across 100 worlds under hegemony control, the news spread. A single planet had stood against the hegemony and prevailed. A pre-integration species had not only resisted but had captured an entire battle fleet without destruction. On 12 worlds, open rebellion broke out. On 30 more, passive resistance movements gained unprecedented momentum. Species that had been subjugated for millennia began to question the narrative of hegemony invincibility. 6 months after Commander Vor's humiliating return, a new diplomatic mission arrived at the edge of the Sol system. This time, it consisted of a single vessel, the Pragmatic Discourse, carrying not threats, but a proposal. High Emissary Lactanen himself had returned, this time with the authority to negotiate terms that the hegemony had never before offered any world: genuine autonomy, recognition of sovereign borders, and technological exchange as equals rather than subjects. As the Pragmatic Discourse approached Earth under escort from the Defiance, Lactanen stood on the observation deck, watching the blue planet grow larger. Beside him, Admiral Reyes waited in silence. "You've changed everything," Lactanen said, finally. "In all my centuries, I never imagined a species that could force the hegemony to reconsider its fundamental approach." Reyes smiled, not without sympathy. "History is full of empires that thought they were eternal, emissary. The truly enduring ones learn to adapt." "And what happens next?" Lactanen asked. "Now that humanity has announced itself to the galaxy in such dramatic fashion?" Admiral Reyes turned to face the stars beyond the solar system, countless points of light representing worlds that had just discovered there was an alternative to subjugation. "What happens next," she said, "is that we build something better. Together. On 1,000 worlds across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, beings of countless forms and evolutionary paths looked toward Earth, the small blue world that dared to say no to an empire of stars, and for the first time in millennia, they began to hope.